Today's video is an interview with Lizzy about some of the things her and Josh were going through over Christmas. Before we get to the video, I wanted to introduce it because I think sometimes at church we want to deal with things that are neat and tidy and with clean cut edges and are comfortable. And this is an uncomfortable story. I think some of the elements of it can make us ask more questions than we have answers to. And it's a shame if we're afraid of dealing with things like this, because there is a depth in the mystery. I was reading recently about the quality Jesus says he most values isn't love, but is faith. Because faith is trusting when there's doubt. Faith is trusting when there are unanswered questions. Faith is trusting when we don't know or we don't feel we can survive. So I thought this was really interesting. Now, creation starts with God creating it with wonder, and then humans introducing tragedy, and our lives are lived in that spectrum between wonder and tragedy. And tragedy is really hard to live with, and the promise of the Bible is one day, because of what Jesus has done, even the tragedy will be somehow transformed into wonder. But at the moment we have to live with these things. Now, this story has tragedy in it. It doesn't end with tragedy, fortunately, but I know some of us will have experienced stories that do end in tragedy, where it does feel like it hasn't worked. But even in those situations, I think some of the principles, some of the ideas about God that we are going to talk about in this interview still apply. And really this is about, how does God love us? Sometimes we talk about the analogy of a parent and a child, and I think it's very tempting to think of ourselves as infants in nappies with God the parent. And I think what Lizzy talks about is an invitation from God to grow up, to mature into the life of the life that's available to us because of his love for us, and to mature that relationship and the wonder of that the creator of the universe would want to deal with us in such a way. So I really hope you enjoy this interview, and that even if it is complicated, even if it does raise mixed emotions, you will pursue that with God and with people in your hub to just find a deeper place of trust in God. Hi Lizzy, thank you for joining me to talk about this. Some people won't know who you are, so why don't you introduce yourself and your little bundle of joy as well.
Yeah, so I'm Lizzy, I'm married to Josh, and we've been coming to Vineyard for, I think, 5 years now. I'm on maternity leave, and this is Joanna, and she was born in October.
Okay, so she is, what, 3 months old?
Yeah, 3 and a bit.
Okay, and Joanna is in fine health at the moment. She's very peaceful and chilled out at the moment, post nappy change.
Yeah.
But at Christmas the story was really different. What was going on with Joanna at Christmas?
Yeah, Joanna got really poorly. It was maybe like last week of Josh being of term for school, and she got like conjunctivitis. So I rang the GP. That moved on to bronchiolitis, and we ended up going to A&E. Got sent home and we went back because she just couldn't breathe through her nose. She got so stuffy in her face that she couldn't breathe through her nose. She could breathe through her mouth, but she couldn't feed anymore. So she'd got really dehydrated from not having any milk. So we went back into hospital on the 20th of December, and they put a tube up her nose just to feed her in her tummy, and they said we'd be in for a few days, which was upsetting enough. But then she got a lot worse and she started having diarrhea that just wouldn't stop, and so we didn't come out of hospital till, I think it was like the 9th of January. We were in for 3 weeks, and we got transferred to Bristol about a week in as well. So yeah, she was really poorly.
And it was like, really, at times you were kind of you were given the indication that this was really serious. There's a lot of times they didn't know what was wrong with her.
Yeah, I don't think they ever quite found out what it was. They were doing loads of tests. They were talking about maybe it was sepsis, maybe it was meningitis, but they never quite found what it was, and they were really shocked actually, because she was losing so much fluid. They were trying to put fluid back in through is it a cannula? I get confused what it all was, but they were putting the fluid back in, and they were giving her the maximum amount for her weight, and it just wasn't getting close. She was, just from her stools, she was losing about 1 litre a day. She ended up as well having to go into theatre to get a line put in so they could put nutrients in her as well, which went in her neck. So that was quite frightening.
Yeah, and there was one incident as well, you told me, when she went for that theatre.
Yeah, oh yeah, because we'd been really hoping for this day to come where she'd go into theatre, because they kept saying she shouldn't be without nutrients for this long. She'd not had anything in her mouth like to eat, or her stomach, for over a week. So this was like the big day, and then took her down to go into theatre, and I originally thought I'd be going in with her, and then they said, you're not going in with her, and they said, take off your mask and give her a kiss, and then basically hand her over. And I was like, oh my goodness, is that like a kiss goodbye? It was like, it felt really frightening to do, and then I just saw them walk off, and they're all like in their scrubs or whatever.
But when you're in a situation like you and Josh, of this absolute desperation, it's like this whole new level, isn't it? Because you can pray that you get this job, or this thing turns out, or that, and if it doesn't, you just think, well, it's not quite what I wanted, but maybe God's got something better. But you're at a point of absolute desperation when, you know, you're not sure if Joanna's going to make it. Yeah,
because I think as well, I'd come to a place of understanding prayer more as hoping that God will change my heart to be more like to think more like Him and want what He wants. So if I didn't get an answer to prayer, it's because maybe my heart wasn't aligned with what God wants and things like that. So when you're in a place where, your little baby's not well, there's not really, you don't want to say like, oh, whatever you want, God. You want to be like, this is what I want and I really need it, sort of thing.
And so the reason I thought it'd be great to talk about this is because there's this journey you're on that kind of goes deeper than often we deal with prayer, which is, God, can you please do this? And then it happens and we're thankful, or it doesn't happen, we think God's got something else. And so in the midst of all this trouble, you're getting opportunities every now and then to be able to go outside, and you were praying to God, and you had this idea that He was maybe saying something to you.
I think I said to you, I'd had a bit of a thing all year about God speaking to me about death, which was a bit weird and not something that's easy to talk about. And I remember talking about it in my hub a few times and thinking, like, no one wants to hear about this. But it was really special to me, where I'd had a bit of an experience where I think I'd been afraid of death, and thinking that if someone dies or something bad happens to someone, maybe like God's like dropped the ball. Like, where was He? Why did that happen? It doesn't really make sense. Maybe He wasn't looking that day or something, you know, or maybe I didn't pray hard enough or whatever it was. And I'd got this real strong feeling that God has a special plan for every day of our lives, including the day that we're going to leave this earth. And that was like really special to me. It had been coming up all throughout the year. I think helping me just with general fears and things, that, like, you know, if my biggest fear is that someone special or me, you know, might die, actually God's helping me to know that He's got a plan for that day. He's not forgotten that day, and it's an important day. So that's been like my motif all like through the year. And so then when actually it seemed quite relevant that someone might die, I was really afraid to pray about it and like bring it to God, because I thought, is this what He's been preparing me for all year? And it kind of got to the point where I had to mention to God about, like, is this what you've been preparing me for? This whole like thing about death. And I really felt, I really felt like God said, yeah, you know, I have been preparing you for this, and this is Joanna's time. And it, like, it's a special time. Like I've planned this out. It's going to be okay. But yeah, this is it now. Joanna's not going to make it, sort of thing. And I felt really strongly that that's what God was saying.
So you were in that state for some time, and you can't really remember how long it was.
Yeah.
But then you started to get a sense that maybe that wasn't all God was saying.
Yeah, I did a lot of walks around the hospital. I wonder if it was just round the corner, yeah, or like say a few days later, I'm not sure. But I remember then thinking really strongly this sense of like, why aren't you praying for Joanna to have healing anymore? I felt like it was God saying, you need to pray for Joanna to be healed. If that's what you want, then ask me to change the plan. If that's what's really important to you, I'm listening, sort of thing.
I think often what we try and do is bring God into our brain, into our time and space universe, and understand how he works from our understandings of how anything can work. And of course, he's outside of that. So you find yourself in this kind of feeling of like it's a paradox, isn't it? You feel God said this one thing, but now he's inviting you to kind of contradict what he's already said.
Yeah, I think it feels like I understand God now in a new way. So much happened from that point where I felt like God was saying that, and just so many things happened in hospital again where I felt like God was speaking, and so many people were praying for healing, and I felt like that was really important as well. And there's a lot that I still really don't understand, but I do feel like it's a different kind of dialogue than I realised, the kind of praying that God really really cares, really is really listening, really wants us to be involved in what he's doing. Because I know we kind of already knew he wants us to be heirs and his children, and that's a big deal. But I think I understand that more now in terms of how much he wants us to be involved. I did think of it the other day a bit like maybe before I would think of like saying a prayer and asking for something, a bit like when you're like learning to ride a bike, and like there's a parent like holding the back of the bike, and then they let go and you've carried on going or whatever. That sort of, God's there and I'm sort of saying a prayer, and then he lets go, see how it goes, and maybe whether it goes well or not is based on whether I've prayed hard enough or whether I'm living in God as best as I possibly can. Whereas now I feel like more like we're on a bike ride together. He's never disappearing off. He's never like letting me do it alone. It's like a constant conversation that I'm inputting into, and just I feel valued in a new way, and that he's listening in a new way.
And I watched one of the videos, like the kind of theology of how can you ask God to change his mind if he's sovereign and all this. And I remember thinking, it's very kind of like a theological approach. It's like, well, there's this Bible, and it's like, there's a logic. This Bible verse says this, therefore, and it's kind of like these proof texts. And I was thinking, I feel instinctively there must be some more kind of beauty to it, more kind of a natural thing. And I thought first of like, it's like God invites us to dance with him. It's like we are entering into this relationship where you are moving with him. And I don't know enough about dancing, except I know that often you have the lead and then the passive. So then I kind of went on and I thought, actually, maybe it's more like God invites you to make music with him, because I've played in bands before. And even if you're not the leader of the band, even if you're doing something that's an instrumentalist, you add to the dynamics in a way that can lead, you can help, you can kind of suggest the build and then the band builds, or, you quiet out. And I think this is a really wonderful way to think of God. God is still God, but we are drawn into, or he's in our life, but we're drawn into him in a way that he's actually interested in us, who we are, what we want, what we think, and meets us at that place, which I think is a lot different than often when he's out there and I'm just hoping he will hear me and do this thing or do that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely had a lasting change. I think it's made me want to spend more time with God each day, because I realise how powerful that is and how special that is. But yeah, I do feel it's hard to like word it right as almost like a new sense of importance. I think obviously God's always seen me, he's always seen all of us as that level of importance, but I obviously hadn't realised.
We are so glad that Joanna is doing well. I think it's so exciting for your story to remind us that God wants to interact with us in a deeper, more comprehensive, more grown-up way than sometimes we presume. So that's really exciting, and I would love for our church to become a church that has a deeper trust in God and maybe a greater boldness in knowing that He is interested in us.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, that's the other thing I felt that I'd taken away. We get so many answers to prayer that we brush off, and they're like massive miracles that we should be getting really excited about. So I was hoping, to share that with our hub more, that just like, actually, God cares and this is a huge deal that's going on. So.
That's wonderful. So would you pray for us, just for the church, just that maybe we would start to see God a bit more like this?
Yeah. Dear Lord, I thank you so much for your amazing love for us. I thank you for all that you're doing in each of our lives. And Lord, I just pray that as a church, as a family of your followers together, that we will know and understand how important we are to you and how much you want us involved in building your world, your new creation. I pray that we will be excited about that we'll want to get involved with you, Lord, and that we'll see your hand where it's at work in so many places in our lives, even things that we take for granted or might seem really small. Thank you so much for healing Joanna and for speaking to me. Amen.
Amen. And God, we continue to pray for your blessings to thoroughly soak Joanna and the whole of Josh, Lizzy and Sam and their family, but we really thank you for what you did in that whole period, and even in the midst of those dark days you were at work. In Jesus' name, amen.